everyone, welcome to today's Business Weekly Show. I'm your host Hania Al-Audi. Cairo has recently signed a treaty with Moscow to build Egypt's first nuclear power plant at El Daba in the Mediterranean coast. The 4-reactor nuclear power plant is expected to be completed by 2022 and is expected to operate with a total capacity of 4.8 gigawatt to meet the high demand of electricity in Egypt. A Russian nuclear firm, Rosatom Corporation, will be in charge of the project. A lot of speculation and inquiries have arisen after the announcement of the project, including its impact on the businesses and economy of the country, its efficiency as a source of energy. So joining me in the studio to answer these concerns is tenured faculty member at the physics department at AUC, Dr. Salah Arfa. Dr. Salah joined AUC in 1968, but before that, he worked as a physics researcher at the Egyptian Atomic Energy Authority. He is also well known as one of the leading social entrepreneurs in Egypt and the Arab world, and a member of the National Committee on Climate Change. Hello, Mr. Salah, and welcome to the studio.
Thank you.
So my first question, from your experience in the Egyptian Atomic Energy Authority, do you think Egypt has the skilled workers to handle the working on the nuclear plant, or do we need foreign experts in order to operate the nuclear plant?
Well, at one time we had enough personnel in the atomic energy, but after the deterioration of the atomic energy in the 70s, what is happening that most of them have left the country. Now we need to have them back, and second, to create another group of new scientists. So it would really need a number of actions in order to make sure that we have enough technical staff to guarantee the sustainable operation and efficient use of these power plants.
So what are these actions that we have to do in order to?
Well, partly to build the capacity in terms of new generation coming up, and to see if our old generation can come back and help, because I think it's, the question of sustainability depends on the capacity that you are building inside the country to really maintain, to develop, to operate, and to make sure that this would be a sustainable effort in providing enough energy for the country.
So as a social entrepreneur, how can the nuclear plant and its peaceful application lead to social and economic development in the country?
Well, first, energy is needed for any development. And you remember, we started with human energy and then animal energy and fossil fuels and nuclear, and now we are always hoping for 100% renewables, because this is to guarantee the security, the high quality, and the cleanliness, and of course to protect the environment. So what we really need right now, in order to build the economics of Egypt, that we need to have a good source of energy to provide what is needed for the country. And this power plant can provide this in a very short period of time. But at the same time, we really need to work hard to develop the capacity also for the renewable energy, that we have a good source and a wealth of that type of resources in the country. We just need to make sure that we are efficiently using these resources as well.
So can renewable energy provide all the needs of the country in terms of electricity and power?
Yes, it can.
Okay, so
but what you need is, again, the capacity for technical people, for industry, to provide that. And since you don't really have that, we need to build it up. To build it up by education, by training, by research, and at the same time that we are filling the gap with the nuclear power plant, because this is not our production, something that we bought from outside with the help of the Russian. So I think this should be in our sort of plans, is an interim action to have the nuclear energy, but to really make sure that from now we are building the capacity for renewables later on.
So in order to achieve that, do we need to focus on households or commercial companies?
Both. You know, we have from a small units that could be providing only an action of a light bulb or a computer or a television set. But then we can have something that would cover a whole house.
Do you think the Egyptian mentality itself somehow is not oriented towards renewable energy, and we need to work on raising awareness that we can, as a country, go or tend towards the renewable energy instead of nuclear or other forms of energy?
I don't like the word instead or a replacement. I always feel that we should really go parallel, but our aim and ultimate goal should be renewables. Egypt has 95% of its land is desert. We can have even shelters and roofs of the renewable energy, and we can live very happily in the very arid and desert areas. Again, desalination of water is also very important, that we can use small units to desalinate water. So I think we have the potential, it's just we need to prepare ourselves for it. And to prepare ourselves for it, we need to start from the new generation by teaching kids. I'm working right now on solar energy for kids. How to make them to think of the future, because this is really the right future, is it to go 100% renewables and clean, protect the environment, and have a healthy environment for people to live in.
So what are the main disadvantages of nuclear energies that make renewable energy much more better as a source of energy?
It is not better. In fact, I must say that we have really lots of threats with the nuclear, especially when we are talking about terrorism, we are talking about mishandling, human mishandling of things, lack of management, good management, and so on. But I think it provides enough energy in a quantity that is needed for the country right now to make the advancement in the economics. We are now asking people for investment to come with industries. We need energy for them. We cannot really wait to build the capacity and to produce renewable energy technologies in the country for that. But we need to start also looking in building the capacity for renewable for the future, at the same time of building these nuclear plants.
So you mentioned something about the terrorist threat. How can Egypt, if it's possible, prevent something like that, or even if it happened to the nuclear power plant, how can it decrease its risks?
Well, this is a risk, and if it happens, it is a disaster not for Egypt only, but for the whole area. So we have to be very careful in the management and in the security for the power plants. And this adds a sort of a problem to the power plant construction. But I think it's, as I said, you really need to have investment for the employment, and you need to have a power plant that provides the power. And right now, it has some risk, and we need to take that into consideration while we are really building the power plant.
So what about the nuclear waste? Is it more expensive to get rid of other energy sources?
Oh yeah, it's, one of the risks is really the nuclear waste, because the only way of getting rid of the waste, the nuclear waste, is to really dig in the ground and just put it in the ground. And to put in the ground, still, is open for misunderstanding and misuse of the land. And second, it could really sort of pollute the water resources that we are really depending on in the area and in the future communities that will be built there. So you really need to be aware and have a long-term plans for the security and for getting rid of this wasting material. I remember in the science department with our late Professor Agli Bishai, he was working on how to get the collection of this waste, nuclear waste, put it in glass pieces so at least it does not dissolve in the soil and also get into the water resources.
Okay, so do you think Egypt now has like a plan to get rid of that waste regarding the Daba nuclear plant?
This is what I really hope, that the authorities should really be very careful, not only to make a good plant in buildings, good operation, but security-wise and also the waste distribution. I don't want to build a house or a building and then you throw the waste in the street and you're getting all the drawbacks of really having the power plant and the energy.
So what measures can the government make in order to encourage more renewable sources?
It's really coming back to the most essential part. We need more awareness to the public. Second, we need more education or better education and good training. Without these three basic key elements, we cannot really say that what would happen is secure, sustainable, and it would provide something to Egypt's future.
Okay, so it has to be like on the long-term plan?
It has to be even in the short-range plan. I mean, you are building a power plant. Did we collect the people to tell them about the drawbacks, the waste that you are talking about, that they should be careful about handling even the waste in the street and so on? Because you remember in nuclear energy, usually you have two things: precautions and time. To make sure that you make all the precautions you need, but you need to do it in good time. Seconds makes a difference, and microseconds make a difference. So are we prepared to deal with that microseconds? That's really the issue. I have a very short story. I was in the nuclear reactor and I was going to get a sample out of the reactor and take it to the lab to make the test, how much radiation or how much change happened to this sample immediately after the shutdown of the reactor. I got a driver, and the driver was waiting for 15 minutes drinking tea. That's really irresponsible actions for people who should be aware that time makes a hell of a difference in the security and in the efficient use of power plants.
So my last question, will the nuclear power plant at Daba provide more cheaper electricity, or is going to be more expensive than renewable source of energy?
No, because you are providing is exactly in economics. You know that mass production is cheaper. So if you have a plant that produces this 4.8 gigawatt, it is not the same like a plant producing 1 gigawatt. So they will be cheaper right now for the renewables. But I think on the long term, they are not secured, they are not healthy, they can really provide risks to the nation as well as to the humans living in the country.
So it's like a short-term solution?
Well, it's a source of pollution. We need to make it like, filling a gap, but we should not forget the long-term plan to really go renewables.
Okay, so thanks a lot for your info, and that's it for today's Business Weekly. I'm Hania Al-Adi. See you next time.
Thank you.